Kyrsten Sinema, senator from Arizona. She reached the U.S. Senate by winning the Democratic Party's primary for that office. Running a primary campaign that, while not especially left-wing, appealed to Democratic voters in an area that is politically competitive for Republican candidates as well. Sinema then went on to win the election, becoming the Democratic Party's senator from Arizona. But once she got into office, her thinking seems to have shifted. Although she voted with Democrats most of the time, she didn't hesitate to abandon party leadership on some votes. In the U.S. Senate, the Democrats and Republicans are evenly split, with tie votes being broken by Her Royal Highness Vice President Kamala Harris. Party leadership tries to include every congressman's interests in a bill in exchange for their vote. With an evenly divided Senate, legislation can only pass if every party member supports a bill. This is because the Republicans have become an obstructionist party that generally refuses to vote on anything proposed by Democrats. This means every Democratic senator has his own veto. His Excellency Joe Biden proposed some bills in 2021. There was infrastructure, tax reform, health care, child care, and legislation to protect voting rights. Senate Republicans had their misgivings about it. Typically, they say something about money, and if there is a Republican constituency, it is money itself. But that is basically the cover story to explain why no Republican vote, or Republican policy influence, can ever taint a bill proposed by a Democrat. Kyrsten Sinema and her lover Joe Manchin of West Virginia, both ostensibly Democrats, pussyfooted over whether the bill would meet their standards. But according to U.S. Senate rules, for most bills to pass, a supermajority of 60 votes is required. The reason for this has to do with weird policies to approximate the impact of a filibuster, where senators hijack the Senate business to complain that, in essence, that they don't have the votes to get their way. Instead of doing that, they acknowledge that 60 votes means a bill passes. That would require 9 Republican votes in today's Senate, since the Democrats can only scrounge up 51 votes if they all vote yes. Now, Joe Manchin was a special case. He was elected from West Virginia, which in no other case would elect a Democrat. Joe Manchin voted his conscience in his Republican-leaning district. That wasn't that important until Manchin became one of the 50-vote majority in the U.S. Senate. Suddenly, Manchin had his own personal veto, just like President Biden. He caused headaches for the Democratic leadership due to disagreements. But underlying all this friction was the knowledge that Manchin usually voted with the Democrats, and if he were to ever leave office, he would instantly be replaced by a Jim Justice Republican type that would never vote for Democratic bills because they were offered by Democrats. Kyrsten Sinema, on the other hand, was supposed to be an actual Democrat, and she also mostly voted with them, but in this case she felt personally, not as a delegate of a party or a representative of people, but as an individual, that the filibuster, the 60-vote supermajority requirement, was a precious thing, representing negotiation between factions and compromise, the sausage-making of laws where parties that don't have a majority can include ideas from other parties in order to earn their votes. This all makes a lot more sense when the other party isn't trying to obstruct all legislation that isn't theirs. Sinema's sexual muse Joe Manchin felt the same way, seemingly seeing in the Republican Party a helpless and excluded group earnestly hoping to negotiate in good faith, once the money made sense. For Manchin, a right-leaning Democratic senator elected with the help of Republican votes, it reflected his time in the Senate. He was proof that there were swing votes. But the U.S. Senate didn't elect Joe Manchin to the U.S. Senate. And Joe Manchin, feeling attacked by the Democratic Party, with whom he usually voted, left the Democratic Party and announced he would not run for re-election in 2024. Back to Kyrsten Sinema. As I mentioned, Democrats elected her, and they didn't get exactly what they expected. They got someone with no constituency, who voted however she wanted. There's no law against that. But in an evenly divided Congress, she was making decisions not just for herself, but for millions of people who sent Democrats to Congress. The Democratic Party of Arizona was outraged by Sinema's refusal to vote against the filibuster, and therefore to empower Republicans to block the Democratic Party's agenda. Their executive board censured her for that. Sinema is disliked by everyone. The Democrats feel she betrayed them in Congress and stole their votes from other Democratic primary candidates. The Republicans hate her, of course, because she isn't a Republican. Taking this cue, she left the Democratic Party, becoming an unelected occupant of a Democratic Party seat, and like her boyfriend, Joe Manchin, she has announced she will not be running for re-election. Who would vote for her?